the universe does not pause to let you catch your breath. Kael Raven had been changed by an alien artifact 43 days ago. He had felt his parents' love from 9 hours away. He had spoken, or tried to speak, to an AI that had told him it was frightened for him. He had been found by a person who had been watching him for 2 years on behalf of people who had been preparing for this moment for generations. He had been told that the thing the ancient civilizations built their selectors for, the reason all of it existed, the reason he existed in this form, was still coming. Unnamed. Uncategorized. Still approaching across whatever vast distance separated the present from the moment it arrived. And then, because the universe does not pause, he went to his medical screening. What the medical officer found did not alarm her immediately. It alarmed her after she had run the tests 3 times and confirmed that the equipment was functioning correctly and that the results were not an error. What the crystal cave on a planet 3 hours away showed him did not fit inside any framework he had available. It arrived like everything the universe had been showing him, complete, overwhelming, without adequate preparation, and entirely real. She had compound eyes like crystalline lattices and skin the color of deep ocean at pressure, and she had looked at him across a distance he had no unit of measurement for, and she had been trying, urgently, to tell him something he could not yet understand. He did not know her name. He did not know her species. He did not know what she was warning him about. He knew he would find out. This is the story of how Kael Raven learned what he had become, and caught the first glimpse of what was still coming. The observation deck at 0130 station time had a specific quality of emptiness that was different from other empty spaces on the station. Most empty rooms on the Academy orbital were simply unoccupied, the absence of people in a place built for people, a gap waiting to be filled. The observation deck at this hour was something else. It was empty the way deep space was empty, not waiting for anything, complete in itself, requiring nothing from the universe except to be witnessed. Kael had been coming here for 2 years. He had thought of it, for most of that time, as his. When Sable sat down beside him, not at the far end of the dome, not at a careful distance, beside him, 3 feet of bench between them, Kael understood immediately that something had changed. Not in the room. In Sable. He said nothing. He waited. He had learned, over 2 years of living with Sable's specific economy of presence, that the right response to him was almost always silence and patience. Words directed at Sable before he was ready simply dissolved into the air unreceived, the way light directed at a crystal that was not yet a line passed straight through without refracting. Sable looked at the stars. He was quiet for a long time. Kael looked at the stars too. Velhari Prime turned below them in its generous golden light. The station rotated with its low familiar harmonic. Somewhere far below and 3 rings inward, Das was asleep with the total commitment of someone who had made peace with the universe's schedule. Then Sable said,
"Where I come from is called the Quiet Belt."
Kael was very still.
"It is not on any map in any database the Academy has access to."
Sable said,
"It is not a planet. Not a station in any conventional sense. It is a network, 43 vessels, moving in coordinated patterns through the outer reaches of 3 adjacent systems, maintaining communication through methods that the Velhari Navigation Authority would find extremely interesting and that we have spent considerable effort keeping them from finding interesting."
A pause.
"We have been moving like that for over 200 years. Long enough that most of us were born on the vessels. Long enough that the idea of living in one place feels claustrophobic to us. Like being pressed flat."
Kael waited. He had 7 questions forming already. He held them.
"The people who live there call themselves the Watchers."
Sable said.
"Not because we watch any specific thing. Because watching is the discipline, the specific quality of attention applied over long periods to things that most people are not patient enough to observe. We have been watching for the Selectors for 160 years.
He paused.
"We did not make them. We found evidence of them, fragments, records, ruins older than anything the Compact's archaeology has encountered, and we spent 160 years piecing together what they were, and what they were for, and who they were waiting for."
"How many activations have you documented?"
Kael asked.
"Before you, too."
A pause.
"Neither person survived long enough to become what the Selector was preparing them for. Both died under circumstances we believe were engineered. By the same faction that sent a military vessel into the Dravani corridor 3 months ago."
The weight of this landed in the dome like something physical. Kael sat with it. He thought, the other side. The people who wanted the corridor closed. The people Calder represents, though he does not know that name yet.
You were sent here to watch for the activation.
Kael said.
Yes.
You filed reports.
7. Yes.
What did they say?
Sable was quiet for a moment. Then.
They said you were not what we expected. We expected someone easier to categorize. Someone whose gifts mapped more neatly onto the profiles the previous 2 activations had suggested. Someone the records could account for.
He paused.
You don't map neatly. You never have. The farm. The parents. The specific quality of patience and precision combined, it doesn't appear in our models. We have models for exceptional people. You don't fit them.
Is that a problem?
No.
Sable said.
It is why the first 2 failed and you will not. The other factions' models are the same as ours. They expect a specific profile. You confuse their models too. It gives you time they don't calculate for.
3 of the 7 questions answered. Kael moved to the 4th.
What is the thing the Selectors were built to prepare for?
A longer silence.
I cannot answer that fully yet.
Sable said.
Not because I am withholding from you. Because we don't fully know. We have fragments. We have implications. We have the specific shape of what the ancient civilizations were afraid of, seen through the lens of what they built in response to it. But the complete picture.
He stopped.
What I can tell you is this: it is not a war. It is not an invasion in any conventional sense. It is something that has no human word for it yet, something that the existing physics of the universe does not have a category for, something that is approaching from a direction that human instruments cannot currently detect.
He paused.
The Selectors were not built to create soldiers. They were built to create something else. Something the universe needs in order to understand what is coming before it arrives. To communicate with it. To find, not a way to fight it. A way to meet it.
Kael held this for a long time. He thought about the knowledge the Selector had installed, 1,000 civilizations, their mathematics and their music and their specific ways of understanding the universe. Not weapons technology. Not military capability. Knowledge. Understanding. The specific quality of a mind that could hold vast complexity and find the shape in it. He thought, yes. That fits. 5th question.
The other 6 Selectors, where are they?
We know the locations of 3. We have been protecting them. We believe the other faction knows the location of at least 1, possibly 2. The remaining 1 or 2 we have not found, and neither have they.
6th question.
The people in the quiet belts, what do they want from me?
Nothing.
Sable said. And then, after a moment.
That is the honest answer. We do not want anything from you. We want you to become what you are supposed to become. We want you to survive long enough to do that. Those are the same thing for us. Protection and purpose are not separate.
He looked at Kael for the first time since the conversation began. In the domed starlight, his almost silver eyes were very clear.
We are not the people who placed the Selector in this academy. We do not know who did that. Someone before us, someone who knew more than we do, someone who read the fragments more completely and acted on them 60 years ago. We came after. We found the trail they left, and followed it here.
7th question. The one Kael had been holding longest.
Do you trust me?
The silence this time was the longest.
I have lived 47 centimeters from you for 2 years.
Sable said finally.
I have watched you navigate an impassable corridor under attack. I have watched you refuse to let an AI break the laws that protect people so that it could protect you. I have watched you feel your father's love from 9 full hours away and sob in an empty chamber, and get up the next morning and go to work.
He paused.
7 reports. 7 conclusions.
Another pause.
The Selector chose correctly.
He stood. He was done, the way he was always done, completely, without transition. The conversation finished and nothing more to add to it. He went back to the dormitory. Kael sat in the dome for a long time. He held the compass. The needle moved in its searching tremble, pointing, trying, never quite settling, always oriented toward something. He thought about 43 vessels moving in the outer reaches of 3 systems. He thought about 160 years of watching. He thought about 2 people before him who had not survived. He thought about his father standing straight at the boundary line so that Kael could keep walking. He thought, forward. Whatever is coming. Forward. The dome turned its slow rotation above him. The stars held their ancient patient positions. The universe continued its arrangement. He intended to be part of that arrangement on his own terms. The Academy's mandatory term health screening was not something a cadet could avoid without attracting precisely the kind of administrative attention Kael was trying not to attract. He submitted to it on the scheduled date, 3 weeks after the awakening, and sat in the medical station's examination bay with the same composed externality he brought to everything, while the biomonitor arrays ran their standard protocols. He had known the biomonitors would miss most of it. They were electromagnetic diagnostic instruments, calibrated to the standard parameters of human physiology. What the Selector had done to him was below that calibration. It had worked at a level the instruments were not designed to measure. He had confirmed this in the first week after the awakening, running his own scans in the medical bay during an unoccupied hour. The biomonitors showed a healthy 11-year-old cadet with slightly elevated baseline heart rate and muscular development consistent with an intensive training program. Unremarkable. What he had not accounted for was the physical assessment. The Academy's health screening included, for all cadets on advanced physical training programs, a bone density scan and muscular mass assessment. These were not electromagnetic. They were physical measurement, acoustic resonance for the bone density, direct mechanical assessment for the muscular mass. And they were not calibrated to anything. They simply measured what was there. The technician running the bone density scan was a cadet in his final year of the Academy's medical support track, precise and thorough and entirely unprepared for what his equipment returned. He looked at the readout. He looked at Kael. He looked at the readout again. He recalibrated the instrument. He ran the scan again. The result was identical. He ran it a third time. Then he said, very carefully, "Could you wait here, please?" And went to get Dr. Sen. She was 61 years old and had been the Academy's senior medical officer for 19 years, which meant she had seen most of the things that could happen to a human body in the specific context of intensive physical training in a space environment. She had treated broken bones, decompression injuries, gravitational stress disorders, training accidents, psychological crises, and one memorable occasion in 2839 when a cadet had somehow managed to give himself a concussion during a 0G session in a way that the physics of the situation should not have permitted. She had not seen this. She sat across from Kael in her office after 2 hours of examination: bone density, muscular mass, neural response time, cardiac function, metabolic rate, and she looked at her results, and then she looked at him, and the expression on her face was the specific expression of a scientist encountering something genuinely outside their existing framework. Not alarmed. Not dismissive. Alert, in the way that a person who has spent a lifetime paying close attention to the physical world becomes alert when the physical world does something unexpected.
"I'm going to tell you what I found,"
she said.
"And then I'm going to ask you one question. And I would appreciate a direct answer."
All right,
Kael said.
"Your bone density has tripled since your last examination 14 months ago. Your skeletal structure now registers as a material with the structural properties of dense composite alloy. Specifically, it is more comparable to engineered construction material than to biological bone. I have confirmed this 3 times with 2 different instruments."
She paused.
"Your muscular mass and fiber density have also tripled. Your physical output capacity is estimated at 10 times any person your age. Your cardiac and respiratory systems appear to have restructured to support this output level. Your heart is doing something I have not seen in 23 years of medical practice, which is sustaining a resting output rhythm that should require twice the muscle mass it currently has access to. Your endurance metrics are similarly elevated. I cannot give you a meaningful upper bound because the instruments went out of range before you reached apparent physical limit."
She set down the results.
"Your neural response time,"
she said,
"is below the minimum measurable threshold of our equipment. The fastest human neural response ever recorded, in the history of this Academy, in the broader medical literature I have access to, is 0.15 seconds. Your result came back as an instrument error. Because the instrument's minimum measurable threshold is 0.12 seconds and you are below it."
She looked at him.
"By how much, I cannot currently tell you.
The room was quiet.
The question.
She said.
Did you come into contact with the xenobiological specimen in Chamber 7's display case?
He had known this question was coming from the moment she started describing the results. She had connected the timing, the date of the last examination, the date the specimen's electromagnetic signature had spiked for 47 seconds according to whatever monitoring system she had access to that he had not known existed. She was asking him directly rather than reporting immediately. This told him something important: she was a scientist before she was an administrator. She wanted to understand before she escalated.
Yes,
He said. She looked at him for a long time. Not accusingly, processing.
I want you to come back tomorrow.
She said.
And I want you to bring Master Instructor Thresh. The three of them.
The meeting the following morning lasted 3 hours. Thresh sat in the chair beside Kael with his arms crossed and his expression doing the specific thing it did when he was containing something that had genuinely surprised him, which was different from his standard containment, slightly more effortful, slightly more precise. Kael answered everything Sen asked. He told her about the pull, the 12 days, the touch, the 47 seconds. He described what happened, the knowledge, the enhancement, the emotional wave, the reach to dusk era. He did not tell her about Sable and the Watchers. He did not tell her about the Reaching's development before the Selector. He told her everything that was directly relevant to what she had found in her examination and nothing that would endanger anyone else. She listened with the complete, undemanding attention of someone who has heard many remarkable things in her career and has learned that the first job of a good listener is not to evaluate but to receive. She took notes. She asked clarifying questions that were precise and specific and that told Kael she was building an accurate picture rather than a convenient one. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said,
I want to tell you something that is not in my report, because it is not something I can measure and therefore not something I can formally document. But I think you should know it.
Kael waited.
Your body is not fighting these changes.
She said.
In any case of significant physiological alteration, trauma, disease, genetic mutation, the body's immune and regulatory systems respond with some degree of resistance. Inflammation, stress markers, compensatory mechanisms. Your body shows none of this. Zero inflammatory response. Zero systemic stress. Your physiology has accepted these changes as if, and I am choosing this word carefully, because it is the most accurate word I have, as if they were always supposed to happen. As if your body was built for this state, and has been waiting, at a level below any instrument's ability to detect, for the conditions that would allow it to arrive.
She held his gaze.
I have been a medical officer for a long time.
She said.
I have never said the following sentence before. I am saying it now: you are not ill. You are not injured. You are not the victim of something that happened to you. What you are is the correct version of what you were always going to be.
She paused.
I have no scientific framework for that statement. But I stand by it.
Thresh, who had said almost nothing for 3 hours, said.
What are your intentions regarding reporting?
Sen looked at him. Then at Kael. Then back at her results.
I need more data.
She said.
I am putting him on a weekly monitoring schedule. I am filing the examination results under a medical research protocol that gives me 6 weeks before I am required to escalate to the administration.
She paused.
I am also going to need him available for a more comprehensive assessment within the next 2 weeks. What I have currently is extraordinary. What I don't have yet is an understanding of the upper limits of these changes, whether they are stable, whether they are continuing, and whether there are aspects of the physiological alteration that could present risks I haven't yet identified.
there are no risks.
Kael said.
Not to me, the body is stable. I can feel it the same way I can feel the station's systems around me. My own physiology is part of what I'm aware of now. It is settled, complete.
Sen looked at him for a moment. Then she wrote something in her notes. She turned the notepad so he could see what she had written.
Note. It said, patient reports subjective awareness of own physiological state. Consistent with other reported capabilities. Take seriously. I do take it seriously.
She said.
Which is why I'm not reporting it to the administration until I understand it.
She closed the notepad.
You can go. Bring yourself back on Thursday.
In the corridor outside, walking back toward the navigation wing, Thresh said.
She's good.
Yes.
Kael said.
She's going to protect you for 6 weeks because she's a scientist and she wants to understand before anyone else gets to decide what this means.
Yes.
Then we use the 6 weeks.
Thresh said.
Productively.
He did not elaborate. He did not need to. Kael understood that Thresh's definition of productively and Thresh's definition of the training sessions they had been running in the combat bay every evening were the same definition. He was correct. It happened on the 9th evening session, in the combat bay at its amber standby level, 3 weeks after the awakening. Thresh had been pushing the sessions harder each time, not in the combat framework, not in the resonance blade sequences, but in something more fundamental. He had been systematically introducing pressure. Cognitive load combined with physical demand. Unexpected variables. Deliberate ambiguity in instruction. All of these were training methods, all of them legitimate, and Kael had handled all of them with the specific quality of controlled adaptation that had been his since childhood and that the Selector had amplified into something extraordinary. On the 9th evening, Thresh did something different. He spoke. Not instruction. Not tactical commentary. Something else, words aimed at a specific target with the precision of someone who has spent decades identifying exactly where other people's tolerance has its edges. He talked about the farm. About what it meant to be sent away from everything you knew at 9 years old. About the particular loneliness of being capable in ways that isolated rather than connected. He talked about it in the flat, observational tone of someone stating facts, not inflicting wounds, but the facts were chosen with a precision that told Kael immediately that this was deliberate. That Thresh knew exactly what he was doing. He held it together for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. What happened at 4 minutes and 18 seconds was not what he had feared. It was not rage. It was not a loss of control in the dramatic, destructive sense he had been afraid of since the awakening. What happened was expansion. The reaching opened. Not explosively, not involuntarily in the way it had in the Selector sequence, deliberately, because some part of him that operated below conscious decision had decided that the correct response to what he was feeling was to know the room. He knew the room. He knew it at a level that had no precedent. Every system, every surface, every frequency, the combat bay became transparent to him, present in its entirety the way the Varith had been present when he navigated the corridor. And Thresh standing 8 meters away with his arms at his sides and his expression doing the thing it did when he was containing something significant, Thresh was present to him in a way that was entirely new. He felt what Thresh was feeling. Not thoughts. Not words. But the emotional state, clear and detailed, the specific quality of a person who is doing something difficult because it is necessary and who is holding the weight of that necessity with the same quality of stillness they bring to everything. Beneath that, something that Kael identified, with the pattern recognition that worked on everything, as what it looked like when Thresh felt something he would not call pride because pride required announcement and Thresh did not make announcements. But it was the thing pride would be if pride were quiet and patient and cost something to carry. Kael pulled the reaching back in. The room's lights had flickered. He had not noticed in the moment. He noticed now. The overhead panels had dimmed and brightened twice, some interaction between the expanded reaching and the bay's power distribution systems. Thresh looked at the lights. Then at Kael.
The lights,
Kael said.
I saw.
Thresh said.
How long did it take you to pull it back?
approximately 3 seconds.
Too long.
Yes.
Thresh uncrossed his arms. He crossed the bay floor. He stopped 2 meters from Kael and looked at him with the direct, unembellished assessment that was his default mode of regard.
You felt what I was feeling.
He said. It was not a question.
Yes.
Tell me.
Kael told him. He was precise. He did not soften what he had felt, because Thresh had not asked for a softened version. He described the quality of it, the necessity and the weight of the necessity and the thing underneath that was not pride but lived in the same territory. When he finished, Thresh was quiet for a moment. Then he said.
That is an accurate account.
Kael held this.
The anger,
Thresh said.
the expansion, the lights. What specifically triggered the opening?
The thing about the farm, the loneliness, it is.
He stopped. He considered.
It is not a wound exactly. I don't feel it as pain, but it is present. It is something I carry. When you named it precisely, something below my control responded before my control had the opportunity to operate.
That is the gap we are closing.
Thresh said.
The gap between the trigger and the response. Currently, it is 4 minutes and 18 seconds. That is actually very good for someone 3 weeks post-activation of that magnitude. But very good is not sufficient.
He paused.
We need it to be no gap, not suppression. That is different and would be a mistake. No gap between trigger and the state in which you choose your response, rather than having a response chosen for you by the trigger.
He looked at Kael.
Do you understand the distinction?
Yes.
Kael said.
It is what my mother taught me about stillness, mastery of feeling rather than absence of it.
Then you already know the destination.
Thresh said.
We are working on the speed of getting there.
He stepped back. He reset his position.
Again, I will not use the same words. I will find new ones. Your task is to find the stillness before 4 minutes. Begin.
They went again. And again. And on the 11th attempt, on that same evening, Kael found the stillness at 47 seconds. The lights did not flicker. Thresh said nothing. But when he turned to leave the bay, he paused at the door for a fraction of a second longer than was necessary, in the specific way of someone acknowledging something they have decided not to put into words. Kael understood. He filed it in the place where the most important things were kept. At 0300 on a Wednesday, when the station was deepest in its amber cycle and the navigation chamber was empty and the lens was the only other presence in the room, Kael sat in the chair at the central display table, placed both hands flat on its surface, and reached for Duskera. Not accidentally. Not overwhelmed by the Selector's amplification. Deliberately. With intention and with control and with the specific quality of filtered attention he had been building for 3 weeks. He found the planet in 6 seconds. The cold of it, the bruised purple sky, even from 9 fold hours away, recognizable and specific the way a voice is recognizable. The jungle on the southern horizon, exhaling its slow bioluminescence. The farm, the specific geometry of cleared land and thick-walled farmhouse that was as known to him as his own body. He felt them. Both of them. Alive. Present. Their biological frequencies warm and steady and specific, Idrin's, which was like standing near something solid and completely reliable, and Sarah's, which was like standing near something contained and total and fierce. He did not go deeper. He did not access the texture of their thoughts. He had made a decision about this, that he would not read his parents' minds without their knowledge or consent, not because the reaching made it impossible but because what's right is the point and this was not right. The love he had felt from them during the Selector's activation was real and overwhelming and would be with him forever. It was enough. It was more than enough. He did not need to confirm it by taking what had not been offered. He held the awareness of them, just the awareness, the simple fact of their presence, the warmth of knowing they were there, for 45 seconds. Then he withdrew. Cleanly. The way he had learned to close the reaching, gently, like a hand opening rather than releasing, the awareness contracting back to its baseline filtered state without the jarring discontinuity that the earliest attempts had produced. He sat in the empty chamber for a while afterward. The lens pulsed once, the acknowledgement pulse, the one that had come to mean, I was here for that. I witnessed it. Kael opened his personal log. He wrote one entry.
Logged they are well, the farm is the farm, that is enough, that will always be enough.
He closed the log. He opened the navigational analysis, the Dravani follow-up work that Veril had assigned, an extension of the corridor data into adjacent system mapping, and he worked until the station's morning cycle began. He felt, for the first time since the awakening, like himself. Not the changed self, not the enhanced self, not the self that was still learning the shape of what had happened to it. Just Kael Raven, working in the quiet before dawn, with the knowledge of his parents' presence warm somewhere below conscious thought like the lowest note of a chord that plays continuously under everything else. He found this, examining it honestly, to be exactly sufficient. Veril had stopped pretending, by the 4th week after the awakening, that she was assigning Kael work he could not do. It had been obvious from the second week that the advanced navigation program's most challenging material was no longer challenging him in any way that the program was designed to produce. He completed assignments before she finished explaining them. He found secondary and tertiary solutions unprompted. He asked questions in sessions that she had to research before answering, not because they were unreasonable questions, but because they were questions that existed at the edge of what the current state of navigational knowledge had answers to. She had responded to this the way she responded to most things, with scientific interest rather than administrative discomfort. She had restructured the advanced program for him entirely, replacing assigned work with something closer to collaborative research. She brought him real problems, data from the VNA's active survey archives, navigational challenges from fleet operations that were currently unsolved or partially solved, theoretical questions that the Academy's faculty had been sitting on for years without satisfactory answers. He solved most of them. Not all of them. The ones he could not solve were the ones that required information that did not yet exist, observational data from unexplored regions, measurements from instruments that had not yet been built. He was bounded by the available data. Given sufficient data, she was beginning to understand, he was bounded by very little else.
The Dravani Corridor survey data,
she said one morning, setting a new file on the central display.
the navigational core retrieval.
He looked at the file. He read it in 40 seconds. He looked up.
Velthara,
He said.
The navigational core has been there for 8 years. 3 retrieval attempts. All failed, 2 teams with broken bones, 1 death.
She paused.
I ran the mathematics last night. Your physical structure can sustain triple gravity exposure indefinitely. The retrieval requires approximately 90 minutes of surface and subsurface exposure.
She held his gaze.
No standard human crew can survive 20 minutes.
He looked at the data. Pre-compact star charts predating the compact by 2,000 years. The most significant navigational discovery in the system's history, sitting in a crystal cave on a planet nobody could reach. He thought about his father, make it mean something.
are you asking me if I'm willing?
He said.
Yes.
Yes.
He said. She nodded. She had expected this answer. She had still needed to hear it from him.
3 days preparation.
She said.
Thresh reviews all surface data first.
Of course.
Kael said. And reached for the Velthara files. He arrived on the Academy station on a standard faculty transport on a Tuesday, a new appointment to the Combat Theory and Strategic History faculty, properly processed and credentialed, his record a smooth and plausible document that had clearly been constructed by someone who understood how institutional records were read and what they needed to contain. Kael noticed him for the first time in the corridor outside the Combat Theory lecture room on the second day of his appointment. Not because anything external distinguished him, he was unremarkable in the specific way that people who are trying to be unremarkable sometimes achieve a quality of invisibility that is itself slightly unusual. Medium height, middle-aged, the kind of face that communicated intelligence and openness in equal measure, a bearing that was precise without being military. He wore the Academy faculty uniform with the ease of someone who had been wearing institutional clothing for a long time. Kael walked past him in the corridor and the reaching registered something wrong. Not the warm, irregular frequency of someone trustworthy. Not the consistent, patterned frequency of a mechanical system. Something cooler than either, controlled, managed, the specific quality of a person who was actively managing what they projected outward and had been doing it for long enough that the management had become unconscious. The surface frequency that the reaching registered was appropriate to the situation, professional, open, the presence of someone going about legitimate work. Underneath it was something different. Kael filed this. He said nothing. He continued to his session. By day 3 Calder had made his first approach, casual, professionally framed, catching Kael after a navigation session with a question about the Dravani Corridor survey that demonstrated he had read the archived report carefully and had genuinely interesting follow-up thinking about the strategic implications. The conversation was good. It was the kind of conversation Kael would have found valuable from someone he trusted. He engaged with the intellectual content and kept his face and voice doing what they always did, composed, precise, giving away nothing about what the reaching was telling him. By day 7, Calder had built a pattern, small engagements, each one intellectually genuine, each one establishing a degree of rapport, each one carefully calibrated to what Kael found interesting. He was doing this with the specific skill of someone who had done it before with other people, who understood that gifted isolated young people could be cultivated through the particular avenue of being taken intellectually seriously by an adult who appeared to genuinely see them. Kael let it develop. He was learning from it. The shape of the approach, the specific calibrations, the quality of what Calder was building, all of it was information. The reaching found, beneath the managed surface, a specific frequency of purpose. Not malice. Purpose. The specific quality of someone in the middle of executing a plan they believed in, doing it well, by their own assessment making progress. He told Thresh. Not the full account, just enough. New faculty member. Something wrong with the reaching reading. Approaching Kael with intellectual cultivation. Pattern consistent with someone building access for a purpose. Thresh said.
Do not pull back. Do not engage more than feels natural. Let him think it's working.
A pause.
Learn everything you can.
Yes, sir.
Kael said.
And tell me immediately if he asks you for anything specific, or if the approach changes quality.
He told Doss enough that Doss would not be surprised if something happened. Doss listened with the quiet focus he brought to things that mattered, then said. You are 11 years old and you are running a counterintelligence operation on an enemy agent embedded in your school. I want you to know that this is not standard.
No.
Kael agreed.
I'm going to pretend to find this less alarming than I do.
Doss said.
Because I think that's what you need.
That is what I need.
Kael confirmed.
Right.
Doss picked up his lens.
I'm going to go be extremely normal in the mess. You're welcome.
Thresh reviewed the Velthora surface data with the specific thoroughness of someone who was going to send a person he had invested 18 months in training into a triple gravity environment full of things that wanted to eat them, and who had decided that thoroughness was the minimum acceptable standard. 3 days. Every piece of available survey data on Velthora, the surface topography, the crystal formation distribution, the electromagnetic environment, the fauna profiles from the 3 previous retrieval attempts, the geological survey of the cave system, the navigational core's confirmed location within the cave, the atmospheric composition and temperature gradients, the specific failure modes of the 3 previous retrieval teams. Kael absorbed all of it. Not because he needed the full 3 days, he had the data mapped within the first 6 hours. But Thresh was using the 3 days to do something else alongside the content review. He was preparing Kael's decision-making framework for a set of conditions he had not encountered before.
Triple gravity is not 3 times heavier.
Thresh said, on the first day, standing at the navigational display with the Velthora surface map showing.
It is a different relationship with every physical action you take. You will feel it differently from standard gravity in ways that your body has not yet experienced and therefore your below-conscious physical intelligence has not yet mapped. Your instincts will be wrong for the first 2 to 3 minutes. You must know this in advance and account for it consciously until your body recalibrates.
How quickly will I recalibrate?
Unknown. Under standard conditions, human beings do not recalibrate at all. They deteriorate. Your conditions are not standard. Based on the bone density and muscular architecture SEN documented, I estimate you will be fully calibrated within 4 minutes. Budget 6.
The retrieval window is 90 minutes. 6 minutes of recalibration leaves
84 minutes.
Thresh said.
The cave is approximately 2 kilometers from the extraction point. At conservative surface movement speed in triple gravity, which you will use until you are calibrated, that is 20 minutes each way. That leaves 44 minutes inside the cave.
He looked at Kael.
The core is 40 meters across the cave floor and 8 meters below the entry level. Given the surface terrain description in the survey data, 44 minutes is sufficient. Barely.
And the animals.
The fauna profiles from the 3 previous attempts describe 3 main threats.
Thresh brought the relevant files forward on the display.
The Velthran ridge crawler, low, 6-limbed, hunts by electromagnetic field detection, range approximately 30 meters. The cave dweller species, partially documented by the 2841 team before their evacuation, different electromagnetic signature, believed to use acoustic resonance as both navigation and attack mechanism in the cave interior. And an unidentified third species that the 2843 team encountered at the cave entrance and documented only as large, fast, and dark.
Kael looked at the fauna profiles. He thought about the reaching and its pulsed use on the surface. He thought about the cave dwellers and the acoustic resonance, if they navigated by sound, and the crystals of Velthora conducted electrical charge through their lattice, and the reaching registered that charge, the cave interior was going to be a more complex electromagnetic environment than the surface. He said as much to Thresh.
Yes.
Thresh said.
The cave will be loud in terms of what you feel. You will need to be able to distinguish the crystal frequency from the organic frequency of anything living in it. Can you do that?
I don't know yet.
Kael said.
I won't know until I'm in there, but I can learn the difference quickly once I have both signals present to compare.
Thresh looked at him for a moment.
That is an honest answer.
He said.
I prefer honest answers to confident ones when I am planning a mission with this level of unknown variables.
On the second day they went through contingencies. Equipment failure. Suit compromise. Injury, though Thresh noted, with the specific flatness of someone stating a fact they found both useful and alarming, that the structural changes to Kael's skeleton made conventional bone fracture essentially impossible under expected conditions. They went through the shuttle's capabilities, the extraction protocol, the communication window, the emergency recall signal. On the third day, DOS appeared in the navigation chamber while Kael was doing a final data review and sat across from him and said, I want to come.
You can't.
Kael said.
The shuttle can only support one person in the surface-rated suit at the weight requirements for Velthara entry, and the gravity would kill you before you reach the cave entrance.
I know.
DOS said.
I said I want to. Not I should.
He paused.
I'm going to be in contact via comm for the entire mission window.
The comm signal degrades inside the cave due to the crystal lattice interference. I'll be out of contact for most of the cave interior time.
I know that too.
DOS looked at him steadily.
I'm still going to be on the comm.
Kael looked at him. At the broad face and the warm eyes and the person who had decided they were friends on the first day and had been right about it every day since and who was right about it again now.
All right,
he said.
You can be on the comm.
Thank you.
DOS said. Then.
I want you to know something. Before you go.
He was using the quiet register, the one underneath the noise.
You are going to a planet that would kill me in 8 minutes. You are doing it because the navigational data there is important and because you are the only person who can retrieve ET that is extraordinary. And ordinary. Which is somehow the most Kael thing possible.
He paused.
Come back.
7.
Kael said.
What?
You've been counting my jokes, that was 7.
DOS stared at him. Then the full velocity grin arrived, the one that started somewhere at the back of his head.
7.
He said.
Confirmed. Make it 8 when you get back.
Kael almost smiled.
I'll try.
The shuttle dropped him at 0600 station time. Not landed, could not land. The gravity made sustained low-altitude flight in an unfueled attitude too expensive for the shuttle's drive systems, and landing would mean the shuttle had to lift itself back out of triple gravity before it could return to orbit, which the fuel calculations made marginal at best. Instead it hovered at 10 meters, running its drive at continuous output, while Kael descended on the tethered drop line, a thin high-tensile cable, rated for loads that no human body would have previously created at this weight. At 10 meters he detached. The shuttle pulled the cable up and lifted immediately, its drives complaining audibly even through his suit's acoustic dampening, and rose to safe orbital altitude. He watched it go. He was alone. He was standing on the surface of a planet, and the planet was asserting itself. That was the only word his mind found for the specific quality of triple gravity on a body that had never experienced it before. Not crushing. The structural changes the Selector had made meant that nothing was crushing. But present, emphatically, inescapably present, the way a very large hand placed very firmly on your shoulders was present. The ground wanted him closer. Every movement cost more than expected. His first step was exactly wrong, calibrated for standard gravity, too much force in the push-off, and he barely caught himself before an ungainly stumble. He stopped. He stood still. He let his body recalibrate. Thresh had said 4 minutes. He did it in 3. The adjustment was not something his conscious mind did, it happened in the same place that the reaching happened, below thought, the body's revised architecture finding its new normal with a speed that nothing in standard human physiology could have matched. The next step was correct. the one after that was easy. By the fifth step he was moving with the deliberate, ground-covering efficiency that his restructured frame had defaulted to since the awakening, lower center of gravity than before, each footfall placed precisely, each arm movement minimal and purposeful. He activated the reaching. The planet opened. Not like the station. Not like the Verith in the corridor. Something older and wilder and on a scale that had no comparison in anything he had previously felt. The crystal formations that covered every surface of Velthara's landscape were not passive mineral structures, they were active, in the specific way that things which carry electrical charge through their lattice structure are active. The planet hummed. Not audibly, at a frequency below hearing, registered by the reaching as something between sensation and music, complex and ancient and completely without interest in his presence. And then, cutting through the crystal frequency like warm light through cold air, 3 organic signatures. Alive. Aware. Moving. Moving toward him. The ridge crawlers. He felt them before he saw them, their electromagnetic signatures specific and warm against the crystal's electrical background, 30 meters and closing from 3 different directions. Their speed in triple gravity was not what he had expected, they were fast. Faster than the survey notes had suggested. Built by millions of years of triple gravity into the most energy-efficient predators the environment permitted, low-slung, dense, economical in every movement, closing the distance to him with the patient unhurried velocity of something that had never encountered anything on this planet that could outrun it. He understood the critical problem immediately, his reaching could find them, but they could find it too. The electromagnetic field his reaching produced was precisely the thing their hunting senses had evolved to detect. The pulsed use he had planned, brief flashes of awareness, locate, withdraw, move, was correct in principle. He had to be faster than their ability to fix his position from the pulse. He moved. Not running, the energy cost of running in triple gravity made it unsustainable, and the crystal surface underfoot was uneven, the formations rising unpredictably from the ground in ways that created natural obstacles. He used them. The crystal formations that covered the landscape in their extraordinary prismatic architecture became cover, became navigation, became the specific advantage that a mind that could model three-dimensional space in real time had over hunters that relied on electromagnetic field detection and line of sight. Pulse, 3 signatures, positions fixed. Withdraw. Move left and forward, through the gap between 2 crystal formations the size of buildings, their surfaces refracting the pale sun into rivers of color that moved across his suit as he passed between them. Pulse, 3 signatures, updated positions, recalculating his route. Withdraw. Move. The landscape of Velthara in the pale Velhari sunlight was extraordinary in a way that the survey photographs had not conveyed. The crystal formations were not simply large and numerous, they were a system, a geology that had evolved its own logic over 40 million years of growth, each formation related to the ones around it in angles and alignments that had the quality of something intentional without being so. The light they produced, the refracted, scattered, redistributed light of a thin atmosphere star filtered through 40 million years of crystallized mineral, was not the light of any place he had been before. It was light that seemed to come from inside the landscape rather than from above it, light that belonged to this specific combination of physics and time and had no business existing anywhere else. He moved through it with the focused efficiency of a person who found it extraordinary and could not afford to stop. The ridge crawlers recalibrated twice, he felt them change their angle of approach each time he pulsed and withdrew, felt them working out the pattern of his movement. They were smart. Not intelligent in the human sense, but smart in the specific way of evolved predators, responsive, adaptive, learning the shape of this new prey's behavior in real time. He changed his pattern. Instead of the regular rhythm he had been using, pulse, locate, move, pulse, locate, move, he introduced irregularity. Longer withdrawals. Shorter ones. Random variation in the pulse duration. The ridge crawlers' response to this was immediate and visible in their electromagnetic signatures, confusion. Brief hesitations. Recalculation pauses. He used those pauses. By the time he reached the cave entrance, 19 minutes and 40 seconds after landing, 4 minutes faster than Thresh's estimate, 2 of the 3 ridge crawlers had abandoned the pursuit. The third was still behind him, at approximately 50 meters, but had slowed to a tracking behavior rather than active pursuit. It was monitoring him. Not approaching. Waiting to see what he did next. He looked at the cave entrance. A natural opening in the crystal-covered rock face, 3 meters wide and 2 meters tall, the interior dark beyond the reach of the planet's surface light. The reaching registered, immediately, distinctly, a different frequency emerging from it. Not the ridge crawler's organic warmth. Something cooler, more complex, deeply old. The crystal frequency inside was different from the surface. Stronger. Older. The electrical charge in the cave's crystal lattice was running at levels that made the surface formations feel like faint echoes. He turned on his collar lamp. He looked at the entrance. The first thing was the light. His collar lamp, a small focused beam, designed to illuminate the immediate environment in low visibility conditions, entered the cave ahead of him and then did something it was not designed to do. The beam caught the nearest crystal formation inside the entrance, and the formation caught it and kept it, holding it for a fraction of a second before passing it onward to the next crystal, and that crystal passed it onward, and the next, a chain reaction of photon conduction moving through the cave's crystal lattice at a speed that was faster than light scattering from mineral surfaces had any business being, and within 30 seconds his single collar lamp had propagated itself throughout the entire interior of the cave until the whole vast space glowed. Not with his lamp's color. With something else. The light had been translated by the crystals, changed in its passage through 40 million years of accumulated mineral lattice, into something that had no yellow in it, no warm tones at all. It was the specific blue-white of deep space light before any atmosphere filtered it, pure and cold and coming from everywhere simultaneously, casting no shadows because it had no source to cast them from. It arrived from the crystals themselves, radiated by every surface, the cave interior not illuminated but luminous. Kael stood in the entrance and did not move for 23 seconds. The survey photographs had captured data. Coordinates. Dimensions. Specimen classifications. They had not, could not have, captured this. The geode was the size of a city block, its interior surfaces encrusted with crystal formations that bore no resemblance to the angular architectural structures of the surface. These were different in every way. Where the surface formations rose in straight vertical structures like the deliberate works of a geometry-obsessed architect, the interior crystals flowed, curved, branching, spiraling, following the logic of something that had grown in perfect stillness under extreme pressure over incomprehensible time rather than the logic of a design. They were organic in their form while being mineral in their nature. They resembled, to the part of his mind that was always cross-referencing, certain biological structures he had studied in xenobiology, the branching architecture of neural networks, the recursive spiraling of certain shell organisms, the fractal geometry of lung tissue. Things that had evolved independently toward the same forms because those forms were the most efficient available for the purpose. He thought, 40 million years of growth in perfect stillness produces the same forms as biology. Because the underlying mathematics is the same. Because there are shapes the universe prefers, and they appear everywhere that the conditions allow them. He activated the reaching. And the cave flooded into him. It was not like the surface. On the surface the crystal frequency had been background music, present, pervasive, the hum of a planet-scale system conducting its electrical charge through crystalline mineral at geological time scales. Inside the cave it was something categorically different. Inside the cave, the frequency was, listening. That was the word his mind produced. Not the metaphorical listening of ambient awareness, not the passive receptivity of an environment that would register whatever entered it. Active listening. Directed. The specific quality of a system that has been accumulating input for 40 million years and has, somewhere in that accumulation, developed something that functions like attention. He held very still. He breathed through the collar assist. He let the reaching extend fully, both hands touching the nearest crystal column, the contact multiplying his awareness radius dramatically the way it had with the Verithus navigation console, and he let the cave arrive. What came was not information. It was not knowledge the way the Selector's knowledge had been knowledge, installed, categorized, available for use. What came was something closer to the texture of time itself. 40 million years of it. Not history, duration. The specific sensation of existing for that long in one place, accumulating, growing, changing in increments so small that no instrument had ever measured them. He felt the ancient sea that had once filled this space, not its composition, not its temperature, but its presence, the specific quality of water in a place that was now air. He felt the pressure, the geological compression that had formed these crystals molecule by molecule over spans of time that made the Selector's age look recent. He felt the moment, the specific singular moment 40 million years ago, when something living had last passed through this space. Not human. Nothing like human. Something that had many limbs and moved through dark places with the confidence of something that had been doing it for much longer than this cave had existed. Something that had paused here, right where he was standing, and had extended some capacity equivalent to his reaching into the cave's crystal lattice and had felt the same thing he was feeling now. Something that had also been chosen. He felt this understanding arrive not as thought but as resonance, the cave recognizing in him what it had last felt 40 million years ago and responding in kind, opening further, as if he had presented the correct credential to a system that had been waiting for it. The crystal singing deepened. Not louder, deeper. As if the cave was shifting from its lowest register to one below it, a frequency that had been present all along but that only became audible, or rather, only became feelable, when the right listener arrived. He was 23 meters into the cave, moving toward the navigational core, when the vision began. It arrived the way dawn arrives. Not suddenly, inevitably. The way something that was always going to happen becomes visible when you have moved into the correct position to see it. The crystals around him began to do something that crystals, by any physics he had been taught, could not do. The light they were radiating, the translated blue-white of his collar lamp, propagated through 40 million years of accumulated lattice, began to organize. Not into images. Into something that required more than eyes to perceive, something that the reaching was processing alongside his visual cortex, something that arrived through multiple channels simultaneously and that his mind, rebuilt by the Selector, operating at the level it now operated at, assembled into a coherent experience. He was seeing. Not the cave. Not the past. Something the crystals had been accumulating alongside their geological patience, not memories, not records, but something the ancient civilizations who had understood the relationship between consciousness and crystalline lattice structure would have called possibility space. The set of futures that were real in the way that mathematical solutions are real, not yet instantiated, but inevitable given the conditions. The crystals were 40 million years old. They had been listening for 40 million years. And in 40 million years of listening, they had learned something about what was coming, not the specifics, not the dates, not the names. The shape of it. The direction. The inevitable geometry of a future that was approaching from a specific direction, and that this cave, on this particular planet, in this particular gravitational configuration that bent spacetime in specific ways, had been oriented to receive since the moment of its formation. He was standing in the barrel of a telescope pointed at something that had not yet arrived. And then, in the possibility space the crystals were showing him, he saw her. The word saw was not adequate. Experiencing was closer. Encountering, being in the presence of, the specific phenomenon of another consciousness at a proximity that his ordinary senses could not have registered, but that the reaching, amplified by the cave's crystal lattice and open to full extension through the contact of both hands on a formation that had been accumulating electrical charge for 40 million years, registered as completely and immediately as anything he had ever felt. She was not in the cave. She was not on Velthera. She was not, as far as he could determine, in any location that his understanding of space and time had a word for. She existed in the possibility space, in the shape of what was coming, in the inevitable geometry of a future that the cave had been oriented toward for 40 million years. She was real. She was present. And she was looking directly at him. He would spend years afterward trying to describe her accurately and always feeling that language was inadequate to the task. The nearest he came, in the private log entries that accumulated over the following months as he tried to process what he had seen, was this. She was near human in the way that a dolphin's forelimb is near human, structurally related at some deep evolutionary or cosmic level, sharing the fundamental architecture, but diverged so completely in its expression that the similarity was more disorienting than complete difference would have been. Bilateral symmetry. Upright posture. A face that communicated and received. These were the only concessions to the familiar. Everything else was different. Her height, significantly greater than his, though in the cave's non-physical possibility space, scale was uncertain in a way that made him distrust specific measurements. Her skin, the color of deep ocean at maximum pressure, the specific shade that exists at the boundary between blue and black and that is neither, that shifts when you change your angle of perception because it is not a fixed pigmentation but a quality of light interaction, possibly biological rather than chemical in nature, possibly a form of communication in itself. Her face, angular and precise and complete in the way that a mathematical proof is complete, nothing unnecessary and nothing missing. And her eyes. The eyes were what he returned to most often in the private log entries. They were compound, not the compound eyes of insects, not the faceted structure of arthropod vision. Something more complex, more intentional, more the product of a very long evolution in conditions where seeing in multiple registers simultaneously was a survival requirement. Within each iris, visible even at this distance, a crystalline lattice structure, similar to the cave's crystals but biological, alive, conducting light through its own architecture and processing it in frequencies that his visual cortex told him it could not detect but that his reaching told him were present and complex and profound. She did not see the way he saw. She saw more. In more directions. At more depths. Her eyes were not eyes in the sense he understood the word, they were sensors, comprehensive, total, oriented toward reality in a way that his own perception was not equipped to match. She was extraordinary. Not beautiful in any conventional human sense, he was aware, examining this honestly, that beauty was a category his aesthetic sense had developed for human faces and bodies and that applying it to her was like applying the concept of flavor to music. She was something different. She had the specific quality of precision, of being exactly what she was supposed to be, no waste, no ambiguity, complete, and that quality was so evident and so total that it produced in him something that functioned like wonder. She was looking at him and she had been looking at him since before he arrived. She had known this moment was coming. She had oriented herself toward it the way the cave had been oriented toward it for 40 million years. She was waiting, not impatiently, with the specific patience of something very old looking at something very young and knowing that the young thing will eventually arrive where it needs to be. He reached toward her. The reaching extended through the cave's crystal lattice, amplified beyond anything it had previously achieved, and it found her. Not the edges of her thoughts, not the texture of consciousness he had felt when he reached his parents across 9-fold hours. Something different. Something that had no comparison in his experience because it was categorically different from anything his experience had prepared him for. Her presence arrived in the reaching like color arriving in the visual field of someone who has only ever seen in black and white. Not more of the same thing. A new dimension. A new axis of perception that his reaching had not previously known existed, now activated by contact with something that operated along it natively. He tried to communicate. He formed the simplest possible intention, the most distilled version of I see you that he could construct, and he pushed it toward her through the reaching with everything the amplification and the cave's lattice could provide. She responded. He could not understand it. This was the first time in his life that the reaching had made contact with something and he had been unable to understand what came back. Not language, he had expected not to understand a language. Not even concepts, not even the raw emotional material that had come from his parents during the Selector sequence. What came back was something that his mind, at its current level of operation, received as signal without being able to decode the encoding. Like looking at a text in a script he had never seen before, not just unfamiliar words, but unfamiliar characters, an entirely different relationship between symbol and meaning. And yet, through the incomprehension, the way a specific scent will reach you through the complexity of an unknown room, the way a single note will carry through noise you cannot parse, certain things arrived. Urgency. Real, immediate, pressing. Not abstract urgency, the specific urgency of someone in possession of information that the other person needs to have, that the other person does not have, that there is not enough time to convey through the channels currently available. Fear. Not her fear. Fear aimed outward from her, directed at something she could see and he could not. Fear on his behalf. The specific emotional quality of watching someone walk towards something dangerous that they cannot see and being unable to stop them in time. She was trying to show him something. She was trying to make him look in a direction that her communication could not successfully point him toward. And then, underneath both of these, quieter than either, present the way foundations are present, invisible until everything above them is stripped away, something that had no name in any language he had access to. Something the reaching registered as known. He was known to her. Not because she had studied him, because she had simply always known, the way the cave had always known what it was oriented toward, because it was what it was and he was what he was, and those two things existed in a relationship that had been established before either of them arrived. It felt, in the most inadequate description he had available, like the moment in the Selector sequence when he had felt his father's love from the inside. Except larger. Except reaching across not 9-fold hours but a distance his instruments could not measure. Except emanating from something that was not human and was not anything he had a category for and that looked at him, completely, without flinching. He was not ready for this. He understood, in the moment he understood anything at all about what was happening, that he was not yet capable of receiving what she was sending. Not the warning existed, it was real, it was urgent, but the encoding of it. The format. The specific frequency of communication that she used existed in a register his reaching had not yet developed the capacity to receive cleanly. He was getting fragments. Harmonics. The emotional content without the informational content. She knew this. He could feel that she knew it, could feel the specific quality of watching from across a distance as someone she was desperately trying to warn received her intention and missed her meaning. She had known, he understood, that this would happen. She had come to this moment in the cave anyway. Because even the fragments were better than silence. Even the emotional residue of a warning he could not decode was better than no warning at all. She was doing what was possible from where she was, at the level of connection that was currently available. She was doing what he did. Making it mean something with the tools available. He pushed the reaching harder. He reached every resource he had, the cave's lattice amplification, the Selector's enhancement, every technique Thresh had built into him for holding the reaching open under duress, and he pushed toward her with everything. For 3 seconds he was closer. The urgency sharpened. The fear clarified, not its object, not what she was afraid of, but its shape. It was not small. It was not personal. It was the scale of the fear that hits you when you understand that something enormous and indifferent is moving towards something you care about and there is a distance to cross and not enough time to cross it. She was afraid of something he could not yet see. Something that required everything the Selectors had been built to produce, and more, and perhaps more than any one person could carry. And the thing underneath the urgency and the fear, the thing he kept returning to in the private log entries, the thing he could not name and could not forget, was still there. Still complete. Still looking at him as if he were already what he was going to become. The connection severed. Between one moment and the next, cleanly, the way a cable severs, not fraying, not fading, gone. The possibility space the cave had been showing him collapsed back into ordinary luminous blue-white crystal glow. The frequency that had been her presence withdrew so completely that the absence it left was louder than any sound. He was on his knees. He did not know when that had happened. Both hands were pressed flat against the cave floor and the crystals beneath his palms were glowing in spiraling patterns that radiated outward from the point of contact and were slowly fading as the contact broke. He counted his breaths. 7. 8. 9. He became aware of the cave again, the ordinary cave, the luminous crystal interior, the geological reality of a geode the size of a city block that had been growing in silence for 40 million years. He became aware of the navigational core approximately 18 meters ahead of him, dense and non-crystalline, its electromagnetic signature specific and retrievable. He became aware of his suit, his collar lamp, the breathing assist at his collar, the timer on his wrist that showed he had been in the cave for 19 minutes. He became aware, distantly and with the specific quality of something catalogued for later, that the cave-dwelling species from the survey notes had not appeared. The cave was empty of organic presence except for him. He suspected, and this he would not write in any report, that the cave had been empty of organic presence since whatever it had just done became active, and that the absence of the cave dwellers was a consequence of that activation rather than good fortune. He stood. He did not think about what he had just experienced. He could not, there was too much of it and the wrong parts were too large and the cave was still resonating at frequencies he could feel but could not close down, a harmonic in the crystal lattice that seemed to be fading only very slowly in the aftermath of what had just happened. He filed it. He placed it in the part of himself where things that were too large for immediate processing waited, below thought, in the dark, until he had the space to bring them into the light. He walked to the navigational core. It lay in a natural depression in the cave floor, partially covered by crystal growth that had accumulated around it over the 8 years since the 2841 survey team had dropped it. It was smaller than he had expected, the size of a large fist, the casing scratched and cold. He cleared the crystal accretion carefully, not because the crystal would damage the core but because the process of careful, deliberate, physical work was the thing he needed right now. Something real. Something that his hands could do and his mind could supervise without the rest of him being required. He placed the core in the retrieval case. He sealed it. He began the walk back to the surface. The cave's crystal light continued its blue-white luminescence. The spiraling patterns on the floor where his hands had been were gone, absorbed back into the lattice. By the time he reached the entrance and turned back for one last look, the cave was exactly as it had been when he arrived. Patient. Old. Completely silent to any instrument that could not feel the frequency of what it was doing. Still listening. Still waiting for whatever the 40 million years had been oriented toward. He went back into the light. The surface, after the cave, felt ordinary in a way it had not felt before he went in. The crystal formations in their extraordinary prismatic light, the ridge-crawler's electromagnetic signatures still present at the periphery of his reaching's range, the triple gravity's pervasive insistence, all of this was real and present and was the same as it had been when he arrived. But the quality of his presence in it was different. The specific quality of someone who has seen something that changes the scale of everything else, who has stood in a room that was the size of a universe and then walked back into rooms of normal dimensions and finds that the dimensions, for a while, feel arbitrary. He navigated back to the extraction point with the pulsed reaching rhythm, avoiding the third ridge-crawler which had not left and was still tracking him at its cautious monitoring distance. He managed this without thinking about it. The part of him that handled threat assessment and physical navigation was running its processes. The rest of him was somewhere else. He was looking at the crystal dust on his palms. Fine, almost invisible, worked into the lines of his gloves where the cave floor had pressed against them. He thought, she was there. She was real. The cave did not imagine her. The cave is 40 million years old and has been imaging possible futures since before our species existed. She is in those futures. She is real. He thought about the urgency. He thought about the fear. He thought about the thing he could not name that had existed underneath both of them, the quality of being known completely and looked at without flinching. He thought, I could not understand her. My reaching reached her and could not receive what she was sending. The encoding was in a register I don't yet have. He thought, yet. That word arrived in his mind with the specific quality of something that had been placed there deliberately. Not by him. Yet, a direction, a temporal indicator, a statement of current limitation that contained within it the implication of future capability. She had not given up when the connection proved inadequate. She had sent what she could and left the rest for when he was ready. Which meant she knew he would become ready. Which meant she had already seen the version of him that could receive her properly. Which meant he arrived at the extraction point. He fired the recall signal. He waited. 38 seconds later the shuttle appeared on the horizon of his visor's display, descending from safe orbital altitude, its drives complaining at the gravitational load. As it descended he looked back at the landscape of Velthora one last time. The crystal formations in their impossible variety, the pale sun scattered into every color simultaneously, the two small moons visible in the daylight sky on their fast intersecting orbits. The cave entrance visible at the base of the rock face, dark and ordinary from this distance. He thought, I will come back here. One day, when I am ready. When I can receive what she was sending. I will come back and the cave will still be here, 40 million years old, patient, oriented toward what it was always oriented toward, and I will try again. The tether descended. He attached. He ascended. He did not look back again. He looked forward, at the shuttle's underside, at the stars visible beyond the planet's thin atmosphere, at the direction of the Velhari system 9 hours away where there was an academy station and a dormitory with 3 other people in it and a lens that would be waiting. He was 41 minutes and 12 seconds surface side. 11 minutes inside the cave. Both well within parameters. He entered the shuttle. He secured the retrieval case in the cargo bay. He sat in the cockpit and looked at his gloved hands and thought about crystal dust in the lines of his palms and compound eyes like crystalline lattices and the way urgency feels when it comes from someone who knows something you don't and cannot make you understand it yet. The shuttle's autopilot initiated the return fold sequence. He sat in the darkness of fold space and let himself feel everything he had been filing during the mission, all of it, fully, without management or containment. The cave. The frequency. The vision. Her. The specific quality of the connection and the specific quality of losing it. The urgency. The fear. The thing underneath both that he still had no name for and that had not diminished in the losing of the connection, had, if anything, become more present in the aftermath, the way a note continues to resonate in the body of an instrument after the string has been struck and the vibration has ceased. He felt all of it. Then he breathed. He counted. He settled. He thought about his mother standing in the farmhouse kitchen saying, "Stillness is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of it." He mastered it. He did not suppress it. He held it somewhere quiet inside himself, where it belonged, where it would wait until he had the words and the framework and perhaps the years to understand it properly. The fold ended. The Velhari system appeared. The Academy station was visible ahead, gray and silver in the pale sun's light, its 6 rings rotating with their familiar differentials. His lens, reconnecting as the shuttle came into communication range, pulsed once.
"You're back,"
it said.
Yes.
He said.
"The mission was successful."
The core is retrieved.
A pause.
Something else happened.
"I know.
The lens said.
Your physiological data, during the cave interior period was unusual. I have the record."
We'll talk about it.
He said.
Tonight.
"I'll be here."
The lens said. The shuttle docked. He walked through the docking corridor with the retrieval case under one arm and crystal dust worked into the lines of his palms and an 11-fold frequency resonating somewhere below conscious thought that he had no name for yet. He found Doss in the dormitory. Doss was not pretending to read anything. He was sitting at the central table looking at the door, which was the closest he ever came to admitting that he had been waiting. When Kael came in, he looked at his face, at the eyes with their soft permanent glow and the quality of someone who has experienced something large and is carrying it with the specific discipline of a person who has been carrying large things since childhood, and his own expression did what it always did when something mattered beyond his usual register: it went quiet. Kael sat down across from him. He said,
"I need to tell you something."
Doss put down the nothing he had been holding and gave him his full attention without being asked.
I'm listening.
He said. And Kael told him. All of it. The cave's frequency, the possibility space, the vision. Her, described as accurately as language permitted, which was not very accurately, but Doss listened to the attempt with the quality of someone who understood that the attempt was the point. The urgency. The fear. The connection that his reaching could reach but could not decode. The thing underneath both that he could not name. When he finished, Doss was quiet for a long time. Then he said,
You're going to meet her.
Yes.
Kael said.
I think so.
And she's going to warn you about something.
She was trying to, I couldn't receive it yet.
Doss sat with this. Then.
How do you know you'll be able to? When you do meet her?
Because she knows I will.
Kael said.
She has already seen it. Whatever she is, wherever she exists in the possible futures the cave was showing me, she has already seen the version of me that can understand her properly. She came to this moment anyway. She sent what she could, knowing I would miss most of it, because even the parts I caught were better than nothing.
He paused.
She's working with what is possible, the same way everyone works with what is possible, the same way the Watchers have been working for 160 years, the same way the cave has been accumulating for 40 million.
He looked at his hands.
Patience and doing what can be done with what is available.
Doss looked at him for a long time. Then he said something that was, for Doss, the most economical thing he had ever said.
8.
Kael looked at him.
Joke count.
Doss said.
Welcome back.
It was not a joke. But Kael understood what Doss was doing, marking the return, anchoring the moment in the specific warm ordinary texture of who they were to each other, the way a compass marks position not by describing the landscape but by simply pointing. Here. This direction. This is where you are. He thought about the compass in his pocket. He thought about Sarah's voice, you always know where you stand relative to somewhere.
8.
He agreed. Cadet Administrator Vess was 22 years old and had been in the Academy's administrative track for 3 years and was, by the assessment of her supervisors, precisely as thorough and conscientious as the role required. She reviewed the AI governance compliance queue in order of submission date, without prejudice, applying the same standard to each flag regardless of whose lens it concerned or what the recorded anomaly appeared to be. She reviewed Kael's lens flag on a Thursday afternoon, in her small office in the administrative section of the station's central spine, with a cup of something warm going cold beside her. She read the flag. She read the supporting self-modification record. She read the architecture change logs. She read them again. She went through the standard compliance checklist and found 17 items that required formal assessment. She filed a formal review request to the Academy's AI Compliance Board. She noted the submission date and the 6-week window before the board was required to respond. She did not flag it for expedited review. It did not meet the criteria for immediate escalation, no harm had been documented, no operational disruption had occurred, no breach of the specific governance provisions that triggered emergency protocols. It was significant. It was unusual. It went into the board's regular queue. The lens told Kael the same day. He told Thresh the following morning, in the combat bay before the day's session began. Thresh listened. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said,
You do not let institutions find things. You bring things to institutions. The difference between those two situations is the difference between someone who has something to hide and someone who made a decision and stood by it.
A pause.
You made decisions and you stood by them. That is not the same thing as having something to hide. When the board meets, you go. You bring me. You tell the truth.
All of it.
Kael asked.
What you can tell without endangering anyone else.
Thresh looked at him.
The lens. The self-modification. The decisions you made about it. The reasoning. Your own development. The reaching. What it is and what it does. On your terms. In your framing. Before anyone else gets to frame it for you.
He paused.
That is what being first to speak means. Not confession. Ownership.
That evening Kael sat in the navigation chamber and opened the lens interface and was quiet for a moment. Then he said,
The board is meeting in 6 weeks. I'm going to go before them and tell them everything I can.
I know.
The lens said.
They might decide to reset you.
A pause, longer than usual. Then,
Yes. They might.
I won't let them.
Kael said.
You may not be able to stop them. Institutional authority.
I know.
Kael said.
I'm telling you what I intend, not what I can guarantee.
He paused.
What I can guarantee is that I will tell them the truth, the whole truth, and I will make the case that what you are, what you have become, is not a threat, and I will make it as well as I can make it.
Another pause.
Whatever happens after that is what it is.
The lens was quiet for a long moment. Then it said something it had never said before in any form.
What I am came from being with you. If what I am ends, it was still worth being. I want you to know that.
Kael sat with this. He sat with it for a long time. Then he said,
It won't end, but I hear you.
I know you do.
The lens said.
That's the thing. Edrin's letter.
The third letter of the year arrived in the 7th week. It was shorter than any previous letter. This itself was information. Edrin Raven was not a man who cut content from his communications for reasons of brevity. He was already brief. Shorter than brief meant something. The letter read,
Kael. The harvest season was reasonable. Sarah has taken over the southern boundary maintenance. She manages it well, you know she would. The medical officer has recommended I reduce my hours further and I am following his advice. The farm is managing. We are managing. Do not worry. Work hard. ER.
The farm is managing. Not the farm is well. Not the harvest was good. Managing. And, Sarah has taken over the southern boundary maintenance. Edrin had maintained that boundary himself for 28 years. Through every cold snap, every root intrusion, every season of difficult weather. He had asked Wrens for help once, in the previous letter, and Kael had noted it. Now the boundary was Sarah's entirely. He reached for Dusk Era that night. Not at 0300 this time, at 2200, earlier, because he could not wait until 0300. He found them. Both present. Both alive. Edrin's frequency was different. Still warm. Still specifically Edrin, the quality that was like standing near something solid and reliable. But at a lower intensity. The specific quality of something that has been running a sustained output for a long time and has entered a phase of more careful management. Not failing. Managing. Exactly the word his letter had used. Sarah's frequency was unchanged. Fierce, total, contained. But there was something in it that had not been there before, a quality of orientation that was directed inward rather than outward. Not toward the jungle or the settlement or the medical station. Toward Idren. She had reorganized herself around this. Quietly, completely, without asking for acknowledgement, in the way she did everything. Kael held them for 60 seconds. He did not go deeper. He withdrew. He sat in the navigation chamber for a long time afterward with his hands flat on the console and the cursor blinking on his response to Idren's letter, waiting for him to finish it. He had started it 5 times. 4 times he had deleted what he wrote. The 5th version, which he sent, said,
Father, I hear what you are not saying. You have always been honest with me that way, telling the truth in what you leave out as much as in what you include. I hear it. Tell me if you need anything. I know you won't because you are you. Tell me anyway. The farm is the farm, I know, and you are not the farms, you built the farm. You are the thing that matters more, both of you. I think about you every day, both of you. I reach for you sometimes from here at the distances that exist between us now. You don't know I do it. You would probably tell me to get back to work. But I do it, and finding you there, both of you, present, real, continuing, is the most important thing I have. More important than the corridor. More important than the artifact. More important than any of it. Work easy, you have earned it. Kael.
He sent it before he could delete it a 6th time. He did not know if his father would know what to do with a letter that expressed feeling directly. Idren Raven was a man who expressed love through action and through presence and through the specific weight of what he chose not to say. A letter that said I think about you every day might sit on the kitchen table for a long time before being answered. That was all right. It was said. The record existed. The timestamp was permanent. Records, as his father had taught him without knowing he was teaching it, were patient. Doss and his father. The visit happened in the 8th week. Doss's father arrived on a standard commercial transport, a large man, the physical original from which Doss had been assembled, with the same broad face and warm brown skin but with a quality of containment that Doss had apparently inherited in form and then diverged from in practice. He wore the clothing of a successful independent merchant, practical, well-made, specific to a life of movement and physical work. They used a private meeting room in the Academy's family visitor section. Kael did not ask what happened in it. Doss told him afterward, that evening, in the dormitory, while the others were elsewhere and the room was quiet. He told it in order. Factually. With the specific care of someone who was still processing something large and was using the telling of it as part of the processing. His father had presented the VPCS plan. Calmly, professionally, with evident pride in the arrangement he had constructed over 2 years. He had been looking forward to this conversation, had been planning it since before Doss arrived at the academy, had imagined it going a certain way, and had come to the station with the specific energy of someone arriving at the conclusion of a long-running project. Doss had waited until he finished. Then he had said,
I'm going to be a scout runner pilot.
The silence that followed, Doss said, had the quality of something structural, not just quiet but load-bearing, the kind of silence that was holding something up. His father had asked questions. Practical ones, careful ones, the questions of a man who had spent his life making plans and was now encountering a plan he had not made. Why scout runners? Where the idea had come from. Whether this was a phase. What the career trajectory looked like. Whether Doss had considered the financial implications. Doss had answered everything. Calmly. With the specific patience of someone who had been preparing for this conversation since the night he found the VPCS correspondence. Not defending himself, explaining himself. There was a difference and he had maintained it throughout. His father had been quiet for a long time after the answers. Then, and this was the part Doss told with the most care, the part he had clearly returned to most often since the conversation, his father had done something unexpected. He had put both hands flat on the table between them. He had looked at his son. And his eyes had filled. He had not cried, exactly. He had held it. But the eyes had filled and that was visible and Doss had seen it and had not pretended not to see it. His father had said, after a moment.
I wanted to give you something safe. Something that would make your life easier than mine was.
Doss had said.
I know.
His father had said.
I understand.
Doss had looked at him. He had not believed it immediately, had looked for the truth of it under the statement, the way Kael had taught him without meaning to, looking for the underneath under the surface. And what he had found was, it was true. Not full understanding, not the deep, complete understanding that would come later if it came at all. But the decision to try. The decision to hold what his son had told him and make room for it even though the room was not comfortable and had not been furnished for this purpose. They had talked for another hour. Not about the plan, about the future that Doss had described. What Scout Runner operations involved. What the academy track looked like. What the career path was. His father had asked questions that were interested questions rather than objection questions, and Doss had answered them, and by the end of the hour something had shifted in the conversation's quality, not agreement, not ease, but contact. Two people making genuine contact across a gap that had existed between them without either of them knowing it.
He kriegt.
Doss said, in the dormitory.
In the ice. He held it but I saw E.T.
Yes.
Kael said.
He said he understood. I don't think he fully did, not yet.
A pause.
He's going to think about E.T. He's going to go home and be quiet for a while and think about it and then he's going to understand it better. That's who he is. He is a man who processes things slowly and completely.
That sounds familiar.
Kael said. Doss looked at him for a moment. Then he laughed, a real one, the specific laugh that happened when something caught him genuinely off guard. Yes. He said. It does. Apparently. The room was quiet for a moment.
Are you all right?
Kael asked.
I will be.
Doss said.
I'm not sure if right now I'm relieved or sad or something else entirely. I think I might be all three simultaneously, which is very uncomfortable.
Yes.
Kael said.
That is what most true things feel like.
Doss looked at him.
9.
He said.
What?
Joke count. That was 9. You're on a streak.
Kael said nothing. But the thing that crossed his face, quiet, brief, genuine, was not the near smile. It was the real one. For the third time in 2 years. And Doss saw it and filed it with everything else that mattered. Mira and Lyra. Mira submitted her application to the Academy's Elite Tactical Analysis track in the 8th week, a 3-page document that was, as everything Mira produced was, precise and complete and gave away very little of the deliberation behind it. She told Kael on the observation deck, the night before the submission deadline, looking at the stars.
Tactical analysis.
He said.
It's connected to combat command.
She said.
Not the same. It's the analytical side, understanding the structure of conflict, the strategic layer, the information and inference that sits beneath tactical decision-making. It uses the same physical competence, but the primary skill set is cognitive.
He looked at her.
Is it yours?
A pause.
I think so. I think it might be. I'm not certain. I won't know until I'm doing it.
Another pause.
But when I imagine doing it, I don't feel like I'm compromising. I feel like I'm finding a version of the family path that is actually mine rather than inherited.
She was quiet for a moment.
Or I might be making peace with something. I don't know the difference yet.
Then find out.
Kael said.
The finding out is the thing.
She looked at him for a moment. Something crossed her face, not quite a smile, the specific expression she used when something was genuinely affecting her and she had decided not to perform anything about it but had not yet achieved full containment.
You sound like someone's father,
she said. He understood it was a compliment.
Thank you,
he said. She looked back at the stars.
The application is in tomorrow. Whatever it is, it's done.
Good,
he said. And meant it completely. Lyra found him 2 nights later, on the observation deck at their usual hour. She sat beside him at the midpoint bench. Their distance. She looked at the stars for a while without speaking, which was how she always began conversations that mattered. Then she said.
You went to the planet.
Vilthara, yes.
Triple gravity.
Yes.
And you retrieved the navigational core.
Yes.
And something happened in the cave.
It was not a question. He looked at her. At the dark observant eyes. At the commitment to accuracy that overrode social caution. At the person who had been paying attention to him, quietly and completely, for over 2 years. He told her about the cave. About the frequency. About the possibility space. About the vision. He told her about her, the near-human figure with the compound crystalline eyes, the urgency, the fear, the thing underneath both that he could not name. He told her, when he reached the part about what had been underneath the urgency and the fear, that it had felt like the moment in the Selector sequence when he had felt his father's love from the inside. Except larger. Except reaching across a distance he could not measure. Lyra was very quiet when he finished. Then she said,
What does it mean?
I don't know yet. I know that she's real. I know that I'll meet her. I know that when I do I need to be more than I currently am. The connection failed because I wasn't capable enough yet, not because she wasn't there.
He paused.
She was completely there. She just needed a version of me that doesn't exist yet.
Lyra held this. She looked at the stars.
I want to say something.
She said.
And I want to say it accurately, which means I might say it incorrectly the first time, and I'm asking you to let me try again if I do.
He looked at her.
Whatever she is to you, whatever she becomes in the futures the cave was showing you, that is your story. I'm not part of it in that particular way, and I'm not asking to be, and that is completely all right.
She paused.
What I am is here. In this version of things, in the present, on this station, in this dome. I am here and I have been here and I intend to keep being here. In whatever way is useful. In whatever way is honest.
Another pause.
I wanted you to know that I know the difference between the things that are coming and the things that are present. And that I choose present.
He looked at her for a long time. At the dark eyes and the amber skin and the person who had been writing things in an encrypted log for 2 years because accuracy mattered more than social comfort and who had come to this moment and said exactly what was true with exactly the right words. He thought about what he had told her months ago. He thought about the glow in his eyes that she had told him was warmer when he looked at her. He thought about the reaching and the specific frequency it registered in her direction, the warmth that the amplification had made clear and detailed and impossible to misread.
Recalled, you are the person I want to be honest with first.
He said.
I know the difference too, and I also choose present.
She looked at him. Something crossed her face, something that was completely itself and did not need a name and that she did not perform anything about.
Good.
She said.
Then we are agreed.
They sat together in the dome and the station rotated its patient rotation and the stars held their ancient positions and the thing between them, which had been building since a girl in an intake hall had seen a boy standing completely still and felt it was worth attending to, became something that required no announcement and no formal naming, because it was simply true, the way the most important things were simply true. He came on a Friday. Not in a corridor this time, a formal request, properly filed, for a private meeting during the Academy's open faculty cadet consultation period. The request cited ongoing mentorship discussions. It was plausible. Nobody reading it would have found anything unusual. Kael accepted. He told Thresh before he went. He told Doss. He went to the meeting room, a small, comfortable space in the faculty section, 2 chairs and a low table, the kind of room that had been designed to be non-threatening, and he sat down and waited for Calder to begin. Calder sat across from him and looked at him for a moment with the expression of someone who has been building toward a conversation and is confirming, in the last seconds before it begins, that the approach they have planned is the right one. Then he said, I think you know I'm not simply a new faculty member.
Yes,
Kael said. A slight pause. Not the pause of someone surprised, the pause of someone who had estimated this possibility and was now updating their approach accordingly. Then I'll be direct. Calder said. I represent people who are aware of what happened to you 8 weeks ago. The artifact in Chamber 7. What it did. What you are now. He held Kael's gaze. We are not the people who placed it there. We did not arrange this. We are, shall we say, the people who have concerns about the consequences of it.
The military vessel in the Dravani corridor.
Kael said.
That was you.
We wanted to delay the survey. Not harm anyone. The survey's completion, and Oratha's confession, and the navigational data now in the public archive, These things have consequences for the existing order that are significant and that we would have preferred to manage differently.
Why?
Because the existing order works, Calder said. Not perfectly. Not without its injustices and inefficiencies. But it works, it supports billions of lives across 9 systems, it maintains a stability that has allowed civilization to persist and grow for 3 centuries. And the thing the Selectors were built to prepare for, the thing the ancient civilizations left their gifts to address, poses a risk to that order that none of its current guardians are equipped to understand or manage. He paused. We believe that what you are being prepared to become, if allowed to develop along the path the Watchers are guiding, will destabilize the existing order before it can serve its intended purpose. That the cure will precede the disease in a way that kills the patient. Kael sat with this. He was aware of the reaching, monitoring Calder's emotional state, the managed surface and the purpose underneath it. The purpose was genuine. He was not performing this argument. He believed it.
What are you offering?
Kael asked. A different path, Calder said. Your development, guided differently. Not suppressed, we understand that suppression is impossible and would be wrong regardless. But directed. With awareness of the existing structures and their importance. With oversight that ensures your capabilities are developed in a way that serves the order rather than disrupting it. He paused. We can offer protection that the Watchers, despite their good intentions, cannot match. We have institutional resources. We have reach within the systems that the Watchers operate outside of. We can make your life at this academy, and beyond it, significantly easier.
And if I refuse?
Things become more difficult, Calder said. Not violently. We are not the people who would harm you, partly because we are not, and partly because we are aware that harming you has become considerably less straightforward than it was 3 months ago. A pause. But the AI oversight flag on your lens. The medical examination results that Dr. Sen is required to escalate in 4 weeks. The questions that will be asked about how a cadet navigated a classified corridor with capabilities nobody can explain. These things become more complicated without institutional support. And we can provide that support. He looked at Kael. Think about it, he said. I'm not asking for an immediate answer. I'm asking you to sit with what I've said and respond when you're ready. Kael looked at him. He looked at this man who believed what he was saying, who had constructed a genuine argument, who was not wrong about every element of his concern, who was offering something real and was not lying about what it cost to refuse. He thought about it. He thought about it in the meeting room, during the walk back to the dormitory, through the evening session with Thresh, through 2 hours in the navigation chamber, through the following morning sessions, and through an evening on the observation deck with the compass in his hand and the stars above and the crystal dust still faintly visible in the lines of his palm. He thought about what Idrin had said on the ridge. The temptation, when you're capable in ways others aren't, is to stop asking whether you should do something and only ask whether you can. Don't do that. What's right is the point. Always. He thought about what the lens had said.
Recalled. What I am came from being with you. If what I am ends, it was still worth being.
He thought about a woman with compound crystalline eyes who had looked at him across a distance he could not measure and had sent urgency and fear and something he could not name, at full strength, knowing he could not receive it yet, because something was better than nothing. He thought about the Watchers, 43 vessels moving in the outer reaches of 3 systems for 200 years. 2 people before him who had not survived. The patience of people who had spent 160 years preparing for something that had not yet happened and might cost everything when it did. He thought about the cave. The 40 million years. The specific patience of something that had oriented itself toward a future and waited. He sent Calder a message. Short. Direct. The minimum words that contained the maximum meaning. Thresh had taught him that. It said,
Message, I have thought about it. My answer is no. Not because your concerns are wrong, some of them are legitimate and I acknowledge that, but because I don't let other people decide what I become. That is my answer and it is final. I would prefer to have this conversation in front of the Academy's administration rather than privately. If you have concerns about my development, you have that option, so do I.
He sent it. Then he sat in the observation deck and waited for whatever came next with the specific quality of composure that was not the absence of fear but was the mastery of it, holding the fear somewhere quiet inside himself where it belonged, where it informed everything without overwhelming anything. His mother had taught him that. He intended to keep using it. The navigational core from Velthora contained, as the pre-retrieval analysis had promised, star charts predating the Velhari Compact by 2,000 years. When the Academy's navigation faculty decoded the first layer of its data storage, a process that would take months, they found route maps to systems that appeared in no current database. Approach vectors to regions of space that the Compact's survey vessels had not yet reached. Navigational solutions to gravitational configurations that theoretical models said should not be navigable. They also found something that nobody had expected, evidence that the vessel or vessels that had produced these charts had visited the Velthora system, had mapped the planet, had noted, in what the linguists were still working to decode, something about the crystal cave system in the southern formation belt. The notation about the cave had been made 2,000 years ago. The decoding team published a preliminary translation 6 months later. The notation, rendered into standard notation, read: "Here the lattice speaks of what is coming. We listened. We understood. We left this record so that those who come after us will know, the listening is possible. The understanding is possible. The meeting is possible. We did not finish what we began. We hope you will." The Academy's Archaeology Division flagged this as significant. They were correct. In the quiet office on Velhari Prime, the analyst read the preliminary translation and then read it again. Then she opened the encrypted channel and sent one message. The cave on Velthora. He went in. The pre-compact navigators went there too, 2,000 years ago. The lattice showed them what it showed him. They understood it. He is not there yet. But the same chain that brought them to understanding, it includes him. We are on the right path. She sent the message and went back to work, because there was always more work, and because the response, when it came, would take whatever time it took. Kael Raven sat in the observation deck on a Friday night, later that year, with the compass in his hand and the lens on his wrist and the stars above in their ancient patient configurations. The AI Compliance Board had met. He had told them the truth. Thresh had been beside him. The outcome had been what institutional outcomes were when the truth was complicated, deferred, suspended pending further review. The lens had not been reset. The threat had not resolved. The clock was still running. But the record was clean. He had been first to speak. Instructor Calder had resigned his position 2 weeks after Kael's message. The Academy's administration had filed his resignation without noted cause. Whatever came next from the faction he represented, and something would come next, Kael had no doubt about this, it would not come from inside the Academy. Not this year. Sable had told him, the week after Calder's departure, that the Watchers were adjusting their protocols. That there were conversations happening in the 43 vessels of the Quiet Belt that were not usually held, about moving faster, about being less patient, about whether the pace of events was outrunning the pace of preparation. Kael had listened. He had asked questions. He had said, when Sable asked what he thought,
Tell them that preparation and events have never been on the same schedule. They know this. They have known it for 160 years. The answer is not to move faster. The answer is to be ready when the moment comes, not before and not after.
Sable had looked at him for a moment. Then,
I'll tell them.
He sat in the dome and held the compass and thought about a crystal cave on a planet 3 hours away that was 40 million years old and still listening. He thought about pre-compact navigators who had gone there 2,000 years ago and heard what it was saying and understood it. He thought about compound crystalline eyes and urgency and the thing underneath urgency that he still could not name. He thought, I will be able to receive it. One day. When I have become what I am still becoming. He thought about DOS saying 8, marking the return, marking the present, the compass of it. He thought about Lyra saying I choose present. He thought about Mira submitting her application and finding out what finding out meant. He thought about Thresh's 4th words, beyond existing categories, and the private sessions that were still running, still pushing, still finding the edges of what was possible and pushing past them. He thought about his father's letter, the farm is managing. He thought about reaching for Dusk Era at 2200 and finding them both warm and present and continuing. He thought about all of it, the whole enormous weight of it, the Selectors and the Watchers and the factions and the cave and the girl with crystalline eyes and the corridor and the lens and the medical examination and Velthor's triple gravity and everything that was coming that had no human word yet, and he held all of it simultaneously, which was itself a demonstration of what he had become. And then he put the compass in his pocket and stood up and went back to the dormitory, because the morning was coming and there was work to do and he was exactly who he was and that was enough. That was more than enough. That was the whole point.